I'm very pro 51st state. I think American intervention, at the very least, I think they have to come up and help us rid the communists out of our government and the Davos globalists. And like, we need like Doge and like some help. But I mean, when I encounter people there, I don't get a good logic-based argument. I just get emotion immediately. Like, oh, well, but we're Canada. It's like, but Canada's a land and the people. Canada's not Ottawa. Canada's not the Westminster parliamentary system that is so systemically undemocratic that it's literally utilized as a tool of our subjugation by nefarious players.
John Paul Berg, the man behind one of the greatest podcast episodes ever recorded. Dude, your episode with Payman Ascari on inlay terms from a couple of months ago, I have probably listened to it 20 or 30 times. I have not encountered somebody who has so accurately and eloquently described the current state of, I want to say it, critically thinking Canadian people.
Sure. Dude, we're in the minority these days.
Yeah, dude. Well, I mean, honestly, dude, I listened to it and I reached out to Payman and I was like, bro, you just put out the best fucking podcast episode I've ever heard. And yeah, dude, thank you so much for joining me today.
Man, it's a pleasure. I remember when I was on with Payman, he had mentioned you, and I didn't put it together right away because I'd watched Brave New World quite a few times at that point. And when he was saying, I was just like, yeah, no, it's that's great to hear, Payman. I'm glad people are receptive. And then I went back and I was like, oh my God, that's Jason James. And then I watched you guys discussing me briefly on when he appeared on with you. So I was like, okay, that's it, man. I got to just reach out and see what's up, see if we can have a conversation. So here it is.
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. I'm so excited, man. I love Payman. Payman, you nerdy motherfucker. I love you so much.
He's such a genuine, sincere dude. He's just, and he comes off as that, right? Like it really transmits.
Yeah, no, it really is. Like I told him, if I lived in West Vancouver, I'd vote for him a million times. I'd figure out a way to send some Chinese students into the polling station, and we'd get him.
It's a necessity these days.
Yeah, but yeah, dude, so let's just jump right into it. What I wanted to talk to you about, man, is you have this really beautiful view into the cultural environment here in Canada, and you have this way of explaining it, or at least reflecting it in a way that helps people see clearly. At least for me, it helped me see clearly what's actually happening out here. So we are merely days away from, every election is the most crucial election of our lifetimes, but I actually do feel like this is the most crucial election in the history of this country.
Yeah, you can feel it.
So what's your view on things right now? How do you see this thing turning out? And depending on which way it goes, what are we looking at going forward?
So first of all, I have to qualify what I'm going to say as conjecture. Just like I feel an obligation to do this practically every time, because a lot of the topics I want to delve into are within the realm of conjecture. Like there's no way to vet or provide citations of my primary source data when I'm just kind of hypothesizing on what's potentially going on behind the scenes. So with that said, I mean, I sincerely think we have a uniparty in Canada, and I know that's not a popular opinion. I've lost a lot of friends on X by expressing that. I supported Pierre initially. I really noticed the minute Trump started being adversarial with Canada with the tariffs that Pierre just showed his whole hand. It became abundantly clear to me. Like everyone stood by and made excuses with the pandering to the immigrant communities. We all, well, he's got to appeal to a really liberal electorate, so we can kind of make peace with that. It is what it is. And we all stood by when he was even advocating for the war in Ukraine and really like doubling down on that. We still made the excuses, but when you started seeing him matching Mark Carney verbatim on his response to Trump, it's like, okay, well, you can't really deny this anymore. And I can understand it from both sides. Like, he does have to appeal to a liberal elector. But at the same time, man, like, what we need in Canada is someone to just fearlessly tell the truth. Because we all have a sense of what's going on. So the truth just rings different. And what it seems is going on is there's an oligarchy. Let's call it the post-World War rules-based order, the military-industrial complex. You can go Alex Jones on it and call it the New World Order. But clearly, since at least World War II, there's been big industry and banking interests that have been calling the shots in the West. I would go as far as to say as after Reagan, I think they control both parties in America. Like, they control both sides, and all through Europe as well. As a Canadian, what made me become hyper aware of what was really occurring was looking to Western Europe. With the weaponized mass migration, the Cloward-Piven strategy, you see the way they're coming down with hate speech laws, everything. Any slight deviation from the rigid orthodoxy is mis, dis, or malinformation. Like, that's just fallacious. It's just a way to shut down speech. And like every tyrant since time immemorial, it's for the same reason. You want to shut down free speech because you fear the truth. There's no reason beyond that. So I without, being super pessimistic, I really feel like at this point, Pierre Poilievre is intentionally losing. And I think it's within the next 2 weeks, I think it's going to become clear to more and more people that he is intentionally losing. With that said, I don't know. I'd like to think that wasn't the case, but I mean, Maxime Bernier just went on Tucker Carlson. It just, the episode just dropped. That could have been Pierre. Pierre could have went on PBD. And like, is it that he's willing to alienate his core base and demographic in order to pander to the liberals that would never vote for him anyway? Like, politically, it doesn't make sense. So when things don't make sense, I just start to, I don't know, man. Ever since COVID, like, I just have this severe inbuilt skepticism regarding all of these narratives. And to be honest, this is the best analogy I can come up with. I feel like, because we're about the same age. I'm 41. You're 41, correct?
42.
42, yeah. It was the same ballpark. I feel like I'm trying to explain to my friends when I'm 11 years old that the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan are really actors, and we're watching a performance. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they didn't believe me neither. And I mean, I know it's a black pill, but I just can't see it any other way in Canada right now, man. And here's my prediction. I think Mark Carney wins a very close and a very contested race. And I think Pierre Poilievre falls all over himself to come out and acknowledge the new government. I think that was the plan the whole time. I'll even go a little tiny bit further, man, because I was there when Pierre was running for leadership. We were all so disenfranchised. We were all, the facade was broken. The illusion was shattered, and we all started really paying attention, which was good. But what seemed to happen, it's like they propped up Pierre Poilievre preemptively with this populist shtick to like proactively get ahead of the disenfranchised Canadians that were looking for somewhere to go. And that's like that dialectical opposition, like herd dogs. One dog scares the herd to the right, and the other dog scares the herd back to the left. But ultimately, we're still going towards more centralized control, and we're supposed to be unaware of that. And it's like at some point, it's seemingly abundantly clear. Like, I don't know, man. And maybe I am misreading it, because the man, undeniably, he's in a rough spot, and he's probably getting really bad advice. So it's not that I don't want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I feel personally I can't. It doesn't sit right with me. So I've been politically homeless in Canada during the election, which is great for a political commentator.
Well, I consider myself permanently politically homeless, but the interesting thing is, so you made an interesting point, right? Like, Maxime Bernier is doing all of these podcast episodes or different podcasts. He's really, Tucker Carlson is really as big as it gets behind.
That's huge.
But here's what I think is happening. I think it's not necessarily Pierre Poilievre, but it's the people around him. Canadians are habitually 20 years behind the rest of, particularly the United States, but I want to say the rest of the Western world as well. But let's just say the United States. And so he's campaigning in the way that conservatives before him campaigned for decades. But what he or his people don't seem to understand is that not only is CBC, CTV, Global, and so on not going to give him a fair shake, right? But nobody who's actually voting for him, who's planning on going to the polls voting for him, or who's sitting on the fence is actually watching those networks anymore.
100%.
And so if he wanted to galvanize like a real groundswell of support behind him, then Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, Patrick Bet-David, that's the way to do it. But I think also too, what Pierre Poilievre is afraid of is the conspiracy theorist tag. Is this, Pierre Poilievre went and talked to Tucker Carlson and he's a conspiracy theorist. Tucker Carlson had on Alex Jones. He knows how those connections are going to be made in Canadian media, and that's going to sway,
the irony to that, and I agree with you, but the irony to that is that's going to be made anyway. That's literally how they're framing Pierre Poilievre. He's a Trump guy. And it's just, it speaks to our electorate. Like I often say, we don't have a low information electorate. We have a no information electorate, or even worse, a heavily propagandized electorate. Like they got their elbows up, drooling on themselves when there's like all this information, like what Sam Cooper's putting out. It's like we were talking about that a bit before we started there. Like when I first started seeing you and Sam talking and all of this information really garnering public attention, Sam went on Laura Loomer. And I'm just like, all right, that's it. We're getting it done, man. Like we're going to actually have like a national reaction to this. And what terrified me, I found it utterly demoralizing, is that like it just went over like not much, like not to discredit the waves, because there was massive waves made, but I truly expected a national reaction. Like everyone was going to be up in arms, like, oh my God, well, it's pretty much irrefutable. We're being used as a money laundering and drug distribution hub, and there's receipts for it. But like it goes to like it's almost Orwellian or dystopian. Like we're just, it doesn't matter what information is provided. If it deviates from their accepted narrative, it's just cognitive dissonance. They're not going to acknowledge it, and you get that word. Like I got to talk about that word for a minute. Conspiracy theorist and conspiracy theory entered the public vernacular in the 1960s relative to the Warren Commission. So it was literally put out by the CIA to start to discredit people that had relevant questions regarding the assassination and the official narrative. So I mean, when we say that in society today, if you look at someone and actually use that as a pejorative and say, like, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're basically saying you dare to question an accepted narrative. Like, you're basically saying, like, you're critically thinking. You're not accepting things. Like, I don't know, man. It's wild. And people don't see that. Like, we're lost in the semantics of it. And we're also worried about what each other's going to think that's the big thing. I think you're potentially very right on Pierre worrying about those concerns, but he's going to get them anyway just by being opposed to this establishment, because that's how they operate.
Yeah, you made a fantastic point, which is exactly where I was going to go with it. The thing is the left, the cult of the left, the leftists, have alienated most people to some extent or another. The people who actually exist on the left now is a very, very small group. So what Poilievre had his team, whoever these fucking dimwits are, had they have read the room, what they would have said is lean into it. Lean into it, because most people are outside of that bubble now. And so there are people who may vote liberal who have felt alienated by leftism, but you can grab those people if you just lean into the Joe Rogans and the Tucker Carlsons. And
100%. That is the mainstream now. Like, yeah. And they have more credibility with the populace than the mainstream does. Like, we're coming to a realizations about a lot of things. And one of the biggest things is the profundity of influence over our media. Like the mainstream media, not just the state sponsored like CBC and all that, like, but all of the corporate press swill merchants, they're all just pushing the exact same narrative. It's literally, it's become like Pravda. Like it's just 100%, like, it's bullshit, to the extent where it's almost like the antithesis. Like when you read something, you try to just discern what they want you to think, and then it's the opposite. Like it's getting that bad. It's just fantastical to see it. And again, like I'm on X so much, and I'm getting to speak with like people who are really paying attention. So I forget that when I go to the mall, or even when I go to work, I work in a facility with a couple of hundred people. Like nobody knows what's going on. Nobody even really has a good idea. Like they're so detached, and then they're apathetic about it. And then with this Canada thing, because I'm very pro 51st state. I think American intervention, at the very least, I think they have to come up and help us rid the communists out of our government and the Davos globalists, and like we need like Doge and like some help. But I mean, when I encounter people there, I don't get a good logic-based argument. I just get emotion immediately. Like, oh, well, but we're Canada. It's like, but Canada's a land and the people. Canada's not Ottawa. Canada's not the Westminster parliamentary system that is so systemically undemocratic that it's literally utilized as a tool of our subjugation by nefarious players. Like, if we didn't, like, there's a reason why the globalists failed in America, and it's relative to their system. It's just far superior. There's a lot of checks and balances for tyranny arising. Can you just imagine a world where Kamala Harris would have won? Yeah. Like that was it. That was so consequential for not just Canada, but Australia, New Zealand, all of Western Europe. Like that was the big moment. And now watching everyone, just because of this Canadian thing, like the elbows up crowd, like now they hate Trump again. It's like the world, the whole Western world, just barely avoided full-on totalitarianism. Like they were literally about to lock us down. And like Trump is in there, and he has to rid the globalists out of the institutions. He has to limit their power. I think tariffs is, I mean, I hear a lot of discussions on it. I'm very ignorant to the specifics of those kind of economics, but something had to be done. Seems like it's better than a kinetic force, or like actually using violence. I mean, but everyone in Canada is just, they're Trump deranged. Even the ones that weren't. It's like I said to Payman, like, you don't just hear like liberals, you hear strong conservative and libertarian thinkers making these impassioned arguments for the continuation of a system that in many ways is trying to limit our own individual autonomy and sovereignty. Yeah. It's Ottawa syndrome, bro. It's like Stockholm syndrome, but far more severe and happening at a national level.
It really is. And, going back to Sam, like, yeah, dude, that's the thing that gets me with Sam's work, is that he is blowing the lid off of the rot. I mean, just the depth and just the amount of rot that there is within our political class. And the fact that, China has I wouldn't even say undue, just an obscene amount of influence over our political institutions and industries in Canada. And yet on the Canadian side, nothing. What's crazy is that his work is being referenced in the fucking Pentagon, that he has U.S. officials reaching out to him for advice, to advise them. But yet in Canada, nothing. And I think, I say this a lot, but it's the truth. Mainstream Canadians, and I say that, I use the word mainstream because I don't know what other way to define them, but mainstream Canadians are very much married to the status quo, and they don't like that status quo being interrupted. So the interrupters, like Sam Cooper, get ignored deliberately because of the fear of change that he brings.
100%.
And so that's really what it is the thing about Canada as it is now is that the fantasy world that we lived in for decades behind the protection of the United States is fucking gone. It's long gone. It's over. And where we are now as a country is, it seems to me that we have a whole lot of people who want to go down with the ship, almost want to self-destruct because they don't know what else to do, and they're too lazy or too stupid to really affect any real change. And so therefore they'll keep ignoring the problem until this whole thing completely falls apart, and then they'll just blame it on Trump or whatever.
And that's it too, right? And it's just like classic cognitive dissonance. Or when you read up on like mass formation,
Yeah.
it's the mechanism of it. Like when you encounter something that kind of discredits your accepted worldview, that's a danger to you. So it's easier to dismiss it, or with mass formation in later stages, like they will devour anything that deviates from their narrative. They will see it as you as the enemy. Think of high, like the height of COVID. If you had walked into the grocery store without your mask on, like you have a good chance of getting ripped apart by the crowd. Like it's just the dynamics of how it works, but it's not just that simple neither. Like I feel bad for average Canadians, especially over a certain age, because of course they trusted the institutions that we were conditioned to trust. Of course they trusted the CBC and the CTV. They have a really, they're not online. They're not on alternative media trying to find out what's going on, because they have nothing but the utmost faith in the present institutions. And that's like the level of conditioning. Like when you read like the work of Bernays or Yuri Bezmenov regarding ideological subversion, like these subversive tactics that they use in order to kind of gradually shift the societal framing, conceptual framings. Like that's what it is. And like we're so prone to this. And when you read up on this is a conclusion I came to. I wrote a small article on my X regarding mass formation. Is the most disconcerting aspect of it for me is I don't think we can ever fix it. We're always going to be we're always going to be susceptible to hyperfixation on these narratives. Now there's preconditions, and one of the more interesting one is a long period of uncertainty. People like to know what's going on. We really kind of derive our security from the sense that we know what's going on, right? Really, nobody knows shit, but we all have to think we do, or life is almost intolerable. It's too stressful. So I mean, it's like focusing on that to the extent that it's making you radically blind to anything else, and it's just, again, man, it's like a black pill when you read up enough about it, because we're being manipulated to the extent where we're just being played off against one another. I even see it like the right-left dichotomy, that dialectic, like that's being pumped up, and we're being divided based upon it. Like really, it's more when you watch like Steve Bannon on the War Room or something like that. It's more a populist thing. It's more of a populist versus the status quo, as opposed to a conservative versus a liberal or progressive framing. And then it's like just having us argue about these details. It's just distractionary when we should be like really analyzing the systems and like, well, let's look at fiat currency. Let's look at the central banking and like, let's look at the global economy, because the power that these corporations, this globalist class that seems to be pulling strings behind the scenes, the power they've amassed, they've reinvested it into the system by hiring and even grooming politicians. When I look at Keir Starmer in the UK, when I look at Macron in France or Olaf Scholz in Germany or Mark Carney in Canada, I'm not looking at politicians. I'm looking at political constructs. I'm looking at bad actors, and they're literally sloppily regurgitating scripted rhetoric. It's not thoughts. They're not individuals. And it's just an agenda, man. And it's just, it gets to a point where you almost wonder, like, should I even participate? Should I even like be critical of this? Because to go back to the wrestling analogy, I feel like I'm the commentator for a predetermined match. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to actually provide relevant, substantive commentary regarding something that I think is predetermined and theatrical, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I've become increasingly cynical over the last 10 years. I abandoned the left in 2008 around that time when Obama didn't just bail out Wall Street, but robbed the American people who had already been robbed to bail out a bunch of the people that robbed them, right?
Should have been obvious to everyone at that stage, really.
Yeah, right. And, you know, when you look at now, all these years later, you know, you made a really good point. It's populism versus the status quo. If you look at Trump's administration, it's filled with Democrats and Republicans who have both who have both seemed to have refuted whatever those parties currently stand for, right? And here in Canada, we have yet to have such a political realignment, and I don't know if we ever will, for the reasons that you just outlined, right? Like, I don't know if we'll ever get there, and maybe that's what's causing us to disintegrate, is that we haven't had a political realignment, not one as big and as consequential as the one that just happened in the United States. But maybe that's what has to happen. Maybe Canada has to self-destruct. You know, maybe this thing has to end. And
it has to get real for people, that's for sure. As hard as it is economically, a lot of the people that aren't seeing it yet, they're insulated economically. They own homes, and what happened relative to the economy? Their homes accrued more value. There's more equity. And I hate to say like boomers and blame boomers, because it's not nobody's fault. Like we've been conditioned, and we're set up in a neo-feudal society where the plebs, like, we think we have the appearance, they create the optics that we're getting to participate in this democratic process. But at the end of the day, they own both candidates. So, I mean, it's hard to really place blame. But with that said, there is a demographic of Canadians that have done all right in this situation, because they're already retired, they own their property, and their property is worth 30% more than it was before all of this. So, I mean, listening to people that are retired make these impassioned arguments relative to the good old days, when you're a young man trying to establish yourself and maybe own a home, like, I'm a working class dude, I'm in an apartment paying like a ridiculous rate. And at the end of the day, like, I'm just getting by. So I really do on some level feel like an indentured servant, because I also feel politically neutered. Like, there's no political mechanism for reform in Canada. Listen, I'll put it this way. Forget about the conspiracy theories. I'm going to take Pierre as a good, honest man, and he's going to go in there and try to make a difference. The Senate is presently comprised of 90% radical Trudeau appointees. The judiciary has had hundreds of radical activist judges put in place. Like, the system, it's systemically flawed. Like, it's seemingly irredeemably so. Because what I could see happening, let's be generous here. Pierre wins a minority government. Let's even give him a majority. He's got a slim majority in the House, and now he's going to make change. Nothing's going to get past the Senate. He's going to be blocked on every avenue. And then with Pierre's platform, it's so neoliberal, like the rest of them, that it's still got the mass migration every year, so many 100,000 Canadians. It still has the Paris Climate Accords that is decimating our economy. So that's on two ends. Because, like, just mass migration, when people go on about a carbon tax, that was bad, man. I'm not trying to diminish the severity of that. But what was way worse was just an influx of low-skilled labor with no infrastructure reinforcement. So we didn't reinforce our healthcare system, we didn't reinforce our housing, and we didn't account for the fact that wages are going to stagnate for those at the bottom rung. So we're in a situation now where, like, if say for instance you're a young person, you finished high school, you're thinking about what you're going to do next, you get a job at like McDonald's or a fast food restaurant, you're not making barely enough to rent a room in somebody else's apartment. So, I mean, the economy is kind of forcing us to stack up on one another. And I'll tell you, there's a demographic of people coming in from different countries that are willing to make those sacrifices. And I'm not saying that in like that, it's not some kind of weird racist dog whistle. I hate all that identity shit. I don't care what color anyone is or what religion they are. Like, I truly believe that decency exists in the middle of everyone's heart. And I really think it rings true in hard times. So I'm not saying that. I'm talking from a practical or a pragmatic standpoint. Yeah. It's like, I use this analogy a lot just because it's perfect. If I have a 5-bedroom home, I'm not going to be guilted into taking 20 families in. And I don't think anything that's any critical assessment of me for that position is relevant, because it's just practical. Like, I can't take from my own to help you. I wish I could, but we have this thing. It's a country. It used to mean something. And I mean, a lot of us that are suffering in Canada would like to see it mean something again. But I don't know, man. It's grim. It looks grim.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the immigration, it's funny because it's a difficult subject to tackle, because when you do start talking about immigration, it does automatically sound like a racist dog whistle.
It does.
That's kind of what steers people away from having the discussion. But, if you look in Canada and in the US had one of the most insane situations happen with their southern border during the Biden administration. But, you're talking about importing millions of people into your country. And what essentially the Democrats and liberals have done is they've imported slaves. That's what they're doing. They're importing slave labor, because they are importing people from poor countries who will do twice the amount of work for half the amount of money, right? And that's exactly where we're going. You said something earlier that I've been saying, both on the podcast and privately. I had a hard time defining what this was for a really long time, right? When the whole woke thing started, I recognized the Marxism in it immediately. I saw it starting with Obama in 2008. That was kind of what caused me to break from the left, was during that whole Occupy Wall Street thing and listening to the rhetoric around it, I saw Marxism entering the picture. And that's what caused me to kind of break from the left and seeing Obama for what he really was. And so for the longest time, I kind of referred to it as neo-Marxism or neoliberalism. But during COVID and the Great Reset, when I looked into what the Great Reset was, I actually read Klaus Schwab's horrifically written book, The Great Reset. Well, that to me read like a brochure for fascism, right? Because public-private partnerships is just code for fascism. But what I see this as now is a race toward neo-feudalism.
100%.
And that's what this actually is. So we have a hard time defining it, because I think we've never actually lived under a feudal system, right?
Well, it's all very convoluted too. Like, when you're talking about fascism and communism, we're talking about a semantical distinction. People think they're opposites. They're not. No. It's not even like James Lindsay will speak a lot about it. The fascism is of the left, like National Socialism is of the left. It's the right hand of the left, I think he said. Yeah. But it's like it's very, very similar, and you see it like, for instance, with Mao Zedong. Maoism is the best comparison to compare what's happening in the West, because it's very cultural and identity based. So when you look at like what Mao did in China, he decimated it. Like every communist revolution, it initially becomes the dictatorship of the proletariat by its nature, and then it evolves into just a fascist society. Like, we've seen it time and time again. But it was Deng Xiaoping who actually was in talks with Henry Kissinger, and it's rumored that Klaus Schwab and lots of these European technocrats, early WEF members and stuff, were involved in actually helping fix this model, which is like communism 2.0, or communo-fascism would be the more accurate distinction. And that's the model that they're seemingly trying to push into Europe right now, which is basically like a neoliberal technocracy. Technocracy in the sense everything's made, all the decisions are made by the experts. The people have no choice. I mean, ideally, like all tyrants of the past, they feel what they're doing. It's the only way they can sleep at night. They feel what they're doing is for the betterment of humanity. Yeah. That's the road to hell is paved with good intentions thing. So anyone who's trying to tyrannize, like, it's not even just that evil that they want control. They're that warped in their minds that they feel like it's for your own good. And they're willing to subjugate you to provide that for you. It's like reflexive empathy. It's very dark, man, when you get into the psychological mechanism behind it. But neo-feudalism is 100% accurate. We're debt-ridden wage slaves. We can't, it's harder and harder to own anything, and that's what they want. Like, people don't understand even the premise of a carbon tax. What do you think that's there for? Oh, well, it's the environment. It's like, no, let's forget about that. Like, why is it there? Well, they want you to gradually acclimate to a lower quality of life. Yeah. It's that simple. It's a gradual acclimation. So it's like the frog boiling, slow boiling in a pot, slow, unaware that he's boiling until it's too late. That's totalitarianism. And we're seeing that mechanism happening in real time. And I don't know how Trump managed to get into that as a disruptor in 2016, but that's the only reason we've got a shot right now. I really think he's the agent of change in the global economy. He's really threw a wrench in the entire mechanistic process of how this works economically, internationally. And it's interesting to see the fallout. As a Canadian, I'll tell you, it made some things pretty clear. And for me, again, I don't know. Anyone who tells you that they know specifically what's going on right now, they're almost instantly dismissible. Information dissemination has never been more intentionally convoluted. So, I mean, we're all trying to discern what's happening, like using deductive reasoning, knowing what we know historically, and then seeing the little glimpses behind the curtain that we're actually able to interpret. Now, someone like Sam knows what's up relative to what he's talking about, and he has receipts. Sam's a journalist. You know what I mean? That's different. I'm referencing like people that are just trying to take a broad view and provide a kind of a coherent framing for what's happening. It's we're just guessing, man. So it's with that said, it's wild to watch, man. I think that it showed Pierre's hand. I think when Pierre now had to be adversarial with Trump. And I often wonder, man, just going back to my framing, like it's all controlled in some way. Because it seems to me like Pierre is trying to lose. I said this before Trump came out. Because I supported Pierre for a long time. I voted for him. I was at those early rallies. I seen a bunch of dudes. They looked just like me. They were afraid of government overreach, and that one herd dog scared us over to the other dog. And Pierre was there with a whole bunch of feckless, sloganeering, populist rhetoric. And I talked to the man. I waited in line. I got a stupid-ass little picture, man. I never shared it, but I will. Of me with Pierre shaking his hand with a big shit-eating grin. This is the man that's going to fix Canada. And then since then, man, I wasn't let down. It was worse than that. Like, I felt like a fool. How did I not see this? And then I wonder, man, did they do this preemptively to ensure that a populist option wouldn't gain relevance? Like, if they knew that the PBC is coming out, like if they didn't have someone take over the Conservatives, the official opposition, and start saying some populist shit, then all of us would have fucking looked somewhere else. We would not have we wouldn't have went to Andrew Scheer with the same enthusiasm, because Scheer is like very center. Like they're all pushing Pierre's bullshit. But you know what I mean? I can't help. And again, I truly do hope I'm wrong on this. And I hope Pierre wins and makes Canada awesome. And I'm not trying to be cynical or trite about it neither, but I don't see it like that, man. I feel that Pierre is intentionally losing. Look, it's panic time for this campaign. There's 2 weeks left. Fuck it. Go on, Tucker Carlson. Call PBD up and say, look, bro, I'm sorry. I listened to some bad advice. These guys would have him on. Like the conservatives in Canada, the conservatives in America, the MAGA conservatives, they don't hate Canada. They want us to fix our country, man. They really do. And they feel dreadful for the rational Canadians that are trying to keep their head above the communism, essentially. So, I mean, if I was Pierre Poilievre, you're kind of behind. It's tight, but like throw caution to the wind, man. Like go on some podcasts and really talk. Like, why doesn't he call the Carney out more? Like, Carney's a fucking globalist. Anyone with two eyes in their head can see that. You know what I mean? Like the information that's out on him, like even global news mentioning his China, some of his Chinese ties, and then he calls them fake news. And it worked. That's what I'm saying. That's the most demoralizing thing, because you're seeing all these like young, really smart, like driven journalists like Sam really fucking putting his reputation on the line to get the information to the people. And then what do they do with it? They're fumbling it. They're not. They don't want that. That's too scary for them. You hit the nail on the head, right? Like it's cognitive dissonance. It's easier to dismiss it because they have to reconceptualize their whole understanding of the world if they accept that one deviation, right? So I get it. I feel bad for them. I more feel bad for the young people in Canada. Like, you know what I mean? 20 years old in Canada right now. What the fuck? Well, you know what I mean? When I was 20 years old, it wasn't great, but I mean, it was a lot better than this. You could enter the housing market still. You could, potentially open up a business of some kind and be successful in your endeavors. But now it's just, you know what I mean? Get some kind of job and rent an apartment and maybe have some small creature comforts. You know what I mean? Like Uber Eats. The bread and circuses of modernity are Uber Eats and Netflix. Yeah, that's right. What we have now. And it's effective, man. Or here's an even worse. Here's an even darker black pill. The bread and circuses of modernity is politics itself. They've got it so locked down now that they have us foolish, elbows up, drooling peasants arguing with each other over something that's entirely fictionalized. Political theater for the naive. Now, I know that's sensational. And again, I have no citation of anything to prove this, but that's what it feels like to me, man. I'm watching things that just seem entirely contrived. And I'm watching these narratives play out. And I'm looking at like controlled opposition leads to controlled tribalism. So they can actually play us off against one another. I noticed on X, since the election in Canada was called, my numbers dropped 50%. My account's really active. I'm in these discussions a lot. And then I'm noticing everyone else, all the other big Canadian conservative commentators, it's the exact same decline too. I'm down 50%. Everyone's sharing their analytics. So it's like, what the fuck is X, man? Like seriously, it's a sophisticated algorithmic propaganda tool. And it's self-perpetuating because it's addictive. I'm on there, I'm not getting the action that I'm used to. I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? I want that. And I'm not like that. So, I mean, for it to have that effect on me shows the profundity of the influence. So it's this self-perpetuating, sophisticated algorithmic propaganda tool where our betters, the elites in society, cannot just control the narrative, they can control our reaction to one another. They can create tribalism. They can put emphasis on a narrative. They can de-emphasize a narrative. And I didn't mean to single X out. X is probably the best of them all. But I mean, that's social media. The profundity of the control they can have over society with social media is wild. Plus, we're training all the AI systems. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty dystopian when you think about it. Like we're getting into the pods, man. This is the beginning of the preliminary stages of us literally entering the matrix of some kind.
Yeah, man. I completely agree with that. That's actually been my concern lately is like how independent am I truly? And how much of what I say and do is being informed and shaped by algorithms. And so that's why, I don't know, people who follow me on X or whatever may have noticed. I post and ghost. I don't hang around there anymore because the other thing that really, I wouldn't say concerns me, but hurts me is to watch, people tear each other apart over these fucking teams, these dumb fucking tribes that, like I try not to be too cynical, and I agree with your uniparty theory to an extent, because it is true. They're all part of the same fucking club. But I can't allow myself to go too far down that road because I become uncontrollably nihilistic.
Yes.
To a point where nothing really fucking matters because we're just wards of the state and Neofeudalism is the future. And, we'll all be gig workers. We'll be driving Ubers and having OnlyFans where we jerk off for 4 people who pay us $5 a month. And that'll be it. Right. And I try not to think like that because it's a that's a very dark future. But I don't know if Poilievre is intentionally losing this race, but I will say the choices that he and the conservatives and his political aides have made are, I mean, just unfathomable at best.
Yeah,
Right?
there's not an adjective to do it justice. There's sincerely not, they're not trying to lose. I couldn't see. I'd hate to see if they were. You know what I mean? It's not that bad.
This guy had all the momentum behind him, and you know, if he or anybody around him had fucking brains in their head, they would have seen from the very beginning that momentum was generated by the internet, right? His popularity surged when he did that whole fucking "how about them apples" thing, and they all had apples in their X handles, and Joe Rogan played the clip. It's like, dude, put two and two together, right? Like the fucking boomers that are watching CBC and CTV aren't voting for you anyways, and the few that you will sway is not worth the millions that you're fucking ignoring by not going to alternate.
Yeah, he's hemorrhaging from his own demographic, from his core base. And I watched people, me included, telling him, like, you know, I know he's not listening to me, but they're seeing a percentage of people in their comments that are saying, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, when are you going to talk to things that matter to us, your core base? Because he's neglecting his core base, taking us for granted, and he's hemorrhaging support. He is, man, because there's a lot of people that just can't get past the insincerity now. Like, dude, did you see them? They're checking people at the rallies now and making them take their gear off. If they got to make Canada great hat, they got to make. You must have seen that.
I did.
Like, so what? You're going to become the monster to win? You're going to become the repressive state to take? Like, I don't know, bro. That was so bad.
Well, it's you know. Like, what really disappointed me was, do you remember when a number of Canadian conservatives met with Christine Anderson and members of the AFD, and he came out. The media, of course, painted them as the neo-Nazi, white supremacist German party. And what I was expecting was him to step out in defense of his MPs and say, "Listen, guys, this is fucking propaganda. Like, these aren't white supremacists. These are people who are trying to fix the leftist hellhole that is now Germany," right? But instead, he denounced the AFD, punished his MPs for meeting, and that was the first moment where I was like, okay, he's not who we thought he was.
Yeah, that was it for me too, man. Because Christine, she's like a populist hero. She stood up in the EU and actually called these people out during COVID. She made a plea for the Canadian truckers. She went against Trudeau when he came over to the European Parliament. Like, these are the people that you want on your side. And like, we don't play along with this narrative. These people aren't far right, nor are they any type of identitarian nationalists. It's like, they're populists. They want to get the globalists and the corruption and the bureaucratic state out. They want to stop having hundreds of thousands of young men from third world countries come in and decimate their economy. Like, these are very rational points. We shouldn't give the other side any gravity in their arguments by even acknowledging that's the case. That's absurd. That's laughable. Pierre should have came out and ate an apple on that fucking one. You know what I mean? Just had his apple, man, and laughed them off, because that's where the rational people are at this point. We see that's been the tactic for 10 years, and it's the efficacy of it is where it's waning now. Like, it's not working. It's not only is it ineffective at this stage, it works to their disadvantage, because we can fucking see what they're doing. Like, come on, everyone's a white supremacist that doesn't line up with your weird fucking Marxist ideology. You know, it's so transparent, man. But again, Canadians, like, it's apathy, it's complacency, and then there's the broader cultural issues, man. Like, young men have never been more lost. Our generation was lost too. Even Gen X was a little lost. But like, now it's whatever has been occurring culturally, it's worse now. Like, I have conversations with men in their late 20s, early 30s where I work, and just out in my life, and they seem like the infantilization, where like their whole world is like they're not dating. You know what I mean? They're kind of celibate. They live at mom's, or they're renting a room from an uncle, and their whole world is their video games. They're living vicariously through these video game characters, and they're not happy, and they don't even know why they're not happy. They don't even know where to begin. And that's how lost we are. And these are the ones that are being demonized in the culture.
Yeah.
It's just all these racial framings, the whole white privilege and all this identitarianism bullshit. Like when you look into the academic origins of this, like you get into like Marcuse, and then from Marcuse you get like Angela Davis and Kimberly Crenshaw for like intersectionality and critical race theory. And like the way that's permeated into broader society has really gave a lot of like well-meaning young men that really want to be good people. Young men don't not want to be good. So they think like, oh, well, you know, I'm white. I can't, you know, and it's like, whoa, like what relevance is race? Like for me, who was taught that the value lies in an individual's merit and their content of their character, to watch this re-racialization of society was just, it just blows my mind. Like nobody, I use the term identitarianism now instead of racism because no one knows what racism means. Because that's racist right there. Like you can't reduce people to their immutable characteristics and categorize them. That's fucking sinister, man. And it's stupid. More than that, when you read the literature regarding critical theory, when you read a critical race theory or the intersectionality, it's so laughably absurd. I really don't think there can be a rational individual that doesn't say, okay, well, that's kind of bullshit. You know what I mean? Like really, like what's that say? It says nothing. It's a fallacious framing, and it just leads to such devastation in society. Like, and you look at the Malthusian framings too. This anthropogenic climate change bullshit. We're causing climate change. So now you got young people. Our generation is the first, bro. I got friends I went to high school with that are childless now. Yeah. They didn't get married. They didn't have children. And the real reason why they didn't, I'm sure there were other variables, but one of the biggest ones is I can't bring a child into this world. Like, you know what I mean? We're destroying it. It's like, it's this whole narrative. It's that pernicious that it's appealing to people's good nature and getting them to be a detriment to themselves by kind of adhering to these fallacious conceptual framings. Like that's the core issue with all of the culture war. If we could just get out of that somehow, we could start to make sense and garner some insight to have some logic again. But right now it just gets worse and worse, man.
Yeah. And you know, like it's strange because, you know, I do think that the election of Donald Trump signaled to the world that we are discarding a lot of that identitarianism. And, you know, like I've read a lot of the materials on which that ideology as it presents to us is based, right? Mm-hmm. And the one thing that it all has in common is that none of it makes any fucking sense.
No.
When you read it, it's purposely couched in language that makes it sound smart but completely lacks substance.
Dude, that's the grift here. Like I got to jump in for a minute. There's a thing called conceptual polysemy, and this is a Marxist tactic. So like when you hear something like diversity, equity, and inclusion, that sounds not just benign, that sounds positive. How could diversity be bad? But they do not mean diversity. It's being polemic. Like they take diversity and they don't mean everyone's welcome. That's how we understand the word diversity to mean. It's like a lot of different views, like an abundance of variance. Yeah. But they use diversity to mean specifically absence of the perceived racial hegemony. So when they say diversity, they mean absent whites. It's fucking sick, man. It's like if it was any other group, like, and people can't see it. And one of the biggest reasons they can't see it is because they're afraid someone's going to think they're something. You know what I mean? We're so like, you're going to admonish me with an ism or something. And it's like, man, we can't be afraid of that. Like, if you know who you are, if you truly know who you are, you shouldn't be concerned of others' perceptions. I'm not saying you should want a bad reputation, but if you know you're being honest in your pursuits and you're not these terrible things, then you shouldn't be worried about being accused of it because it's easily arguable. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't care less. I realized this a while ago. Like, I made a decision 2 years ago to jump on X. I didn't know what was going on in the world. I couldn't get a good comprehension of it. I read a lot. But reading a lot is very different than like immersing yourself in this algorithm. and seeing where other individuals are that are thinking are at and what their perceptions are. Then you start to get more pieces of the puzzle. But it's, I don't know, man, it's just, it's so hard at this stage to be optimistic. And again, I'm not a cynic. I'm not going to get into my religion, but I've tried to gravitate more towards Catholicism. I was raised Catholic. Yeah. By the time I was a teenager, dude, I walked away from it. It had no meaning to me. And then I started reading thinkers like Jordan Peterson, and I started to realize of the conceptual framing of Christianity. And I started to try to contrast it with some of these secular conceptual framings. Because, like, if you're not tethered to a logos, if you're not tethered to something to garner logic from, then you can't really apply logic. So when we get, like, we know that there can be religious fundamentalists. If you interpret everything through a religious view, like, and you're dogmatic, like, you're dangerous. You could really, it's going to be hard to live. But what we're starting to understand in the last 10 years is that you could be a secular fundamentalist too. You could be that cold and mechanistic in your thinking that you can interpret cutting the healthy breasts off a young woman that has gender dysphoria. You could think that that's compassionate. That can't happen to someone who's tethered to a moral base. You can only get that lost when you commit to this secular purview. Like, there is no broader meaning. There isn't any truth. It's this postmodernist conception. But it's phenomenal. I truly feel the gender ideology, specifically with the phaleoplasties and the gynoplasties and all of the surgical alterations, I think we'll look back at this in 10 years and view it like the lobotomy of our generation. And I really think the people that are being pseudo-moralistic and trying to advocate for this, they're going to be mortified with themselves. And they're going to just, like, how could we think that? Because it's such a deviation from, like, traditional conceptions of biology. And when these people say, like, look, man, this is based in, I get it a lot. I have no education whatsoever. I just read a lot, man. That's it. And I'll get it a lot. Like, well, what do you know? You don't know the science. Well, I do, actually. Science indicates conclusively, and it's not disputed anywhere, that we are mammals. And all mammalian life is sexually dimorphic. And that can be indicated by the absence or presence of gametes in the chromosomal profile. That's fucking science, bro. This bullshit is based in fallacious postmodernist philosophical framings, like, where there is no truth and everything's a social construct. It's fucking bullshit to oversimplify it. And as a working class man, that's the best. Like, working class, a lot of working class people just could not wrap their heads around this. I really think most working class guys have an inbuilt, like, way to kind of determine that. Like, once you get into the rhetorical with working class guys, that's stupid. It's not tangible to them. So they're not going to entertain that. It's only academics and intellectuals that kind of have the capacity to wrestle with those kind of conceptions, because it's that counterintuitive. Honestly, like, it takes an indoctrination in order to kind of forget about your natural common sense. And that's where we're at with academia. They're just putting out these radical activists, man, that think all of the world's problem is this invisible white supremacist patriarchy. And they're gonna fight the system. It's phenomenal. And the whole time this is happening, like, there's true globalist tyrants that are trying to lock us into a totalitarian society. It's being constructed around us in real time. Like, I'm waiting now, dude. If Carney gets in, you and I'll have all kinds of time to talk in the gulags. Because, God, we're on the top of his list, as is everyone there. Like, this is real too, man. I talk to this. I make the odd post about this, and people will come out and say, oh, well, that bill died when the parliament was shut down. It doesn't matter. If you want to know what it's going to be like under Carney, just look to the UK under Keir Starmer. They are quite literally the same person. They're not a person. Again, they're political constructs. And when they speak, it's not their words or their thoughts or what they're doing for their constituents. It's literally them sloppily regurgitating a script in order to fool the peasants into thinking that this is for us. It's to perpetuate this neo-feudalist system that they have. It's, again, man, I feel like it sucks. I want to, like, end on a happy note. I want to start, but it's dark, man. It really is. It's a dark time. And that's what I mean. Like, when we were saying earlier, like, you can't really go there because I'll get too nihilistic. I'll get cynical. But it's like, on some level, if we don't, are we even being honest with ourselves? Like, and how could we endeavor to fix it? Like, it's I don't know. It's pretty crazy, bro.
Dude, let's cap it there because you nailed it. Like that's where I get stuck, because exactly what you said. It's like, I don't want to become nihilistic. I want to stay optimistic about the future, especially because I have children, and I want them to. I want them to embrace life and live good lives. But on the same hand, at what point am I fooling myself? Right. And that's where I find myself. And, you just stated it plainly. If we end up with Mark Carney in Canada, we are going to become the UK, where people are being
100%.
People are being put in prison for what they say on social media. I can't remember. I was listening to a podcast today where they were talking about they've made over 12,000 arrests in the UK just in terms of like related to hate speech. Right.
Well, they cleared out. Starmer actually had some kind of prison reform going on where he let a bunch of violent people out in order to make room for the political dissonance. Because what they're trying to do, they don't want to do this. This is an expenditure for them. They would rather us all just be very well behaved. But they have to make an example initially. So just like China does, they're going to round everyone up, man, and they're going to give us all harsh sentences, and they're going to give us all fines for deviating from the ideology. Like, this is how totalitarianism works. We have structures for this. We know what's coming. And that's what's so crazy about this, man, is because you're trying to explain to people what's going on, and they have that cognitive dissonance. And it's frustrating, man. All you can do is be patient. I try to present it differently. I try to give analogies. Analogies are good. But then at the end of the day, I have no credibility, man. People just look at me and dismiss me, right? That's why I'm thrilled to see someone like Sam, like an actual credentialed journalist, really getting receipts on some of this stuff that we all have known has been going on. I watched Mark Cohodes too. Yeah. He's a smart dude, man. Just watching him, he speaks very plainly on it about BC and like some of the neighborhoods in BC that are empty. And it's like, oh, that's just a neighborhood that's probably owned by the Chinese triads to launder their drug money. Like, that fucking really is our reality in Canada. Yeah, and it's people like you that are bringing this out there, man. And I admire you for it. And
thanks, brother.
I sincerely do. You and Sam, like, I'm always sharing this stuff on my account, and I'll do anything to promote that, because, again, like, I really expected Canadians to finally fucking get it. And to my utter dismay, we didn't. We just sat back like we have been, waiting to ignore this away, I guess. But such is life.
Well, that ain't gonna work. And, I think the only logical end to this is an amalgamation with the United States to one extent or another.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't necessarily know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you're talking to guys like Mark and, other people behind the scenes. Like, there are people that reach out to me who are in positions of influence, both in Canada and the United States, military, government, and otherwise. And they see exactly what's happening. And it's, when you talk to a guy like Mark is a guy who has built his career on, well, not built his career, his fucking vast fortune.
Yes.
On identifying and exploiting fraud. That's what he does. He's a short seller, right? And when he is coming out warning Canadians, look, this guy's American. He lives in California. He doesn't have to give even half of a fuck about what's happening up here. It has no bearing on him whatsoever. But I think just as a matter of conscience, he's coming out and warning Canadians about what's coming, what's happening. And people, listen to me. Mark was one of the guys who spotted the subprime mortgage fraud in 2008 that led to the global financial collapse. He shorted Lehman Brothers at a time when he was considered fucking insane for doing something like that. Yeah. Right. So the point is that we have to listen to the canaries in the coal mine, man. And, Sam being one of them, but yourself being one of them too, right? You often refer to yourself as just a blue collar guy. I'm just a janitor or whatever. I've heard you say that about yourself. Dude, you and Gord McGill might be two of the most eloquent speakers I've ever listened to. And I really want to encourage you to fucking do more. Like, do
Oh, so 100%, man. And that came about, like, I'm a janitor. I don't define myself based on my gig right now. I've been a janitor for 4 years. I'm not ashamed of it, though. But the only reason that even came out relative to this is because I debate people, and I'm very good at it. And when they're that arrogant and they start getting into their credentialism to dismiss me, and I stick to my arguments and I decimate them, I got to tell them what I do for a living, because I fucking know those people are the kind of people that'll eat them alive. They're that ego-based that knowing that they just got their ass handed to them by someone who cleans toilets for a living, it kills them. It happened one time, the first time I said it, and it just stuck. Like, people started, oh, dude is a janitor. Like, that has nothing to do with what I'm trying to do on there. But I said to this guy, he was being so arrogant, and he was just continuously going to his position of authority and his credentialism. And I said, look, man, I've encountered defecate street toilets with more integrity than your arguments, sir. I'm like, there's my area of expertise, and you can go fuck yourself thoroughly as well. Like, I'm not going to play games like that, man. If you're honest and you want to have a genuine discourse, I don't care what your credentials are. I love it. I like to have my ideas challenged, because I'm not trying to put something out there. I'm trying to be as sincere as I can and make sense of the madness. That's my only goal.
Well, I'll say this, man. You and Gord McGill are two of the most eloquent, poetic speakers I've had the privilege of listening to, and you're both blue-collar guys. And I wish there was a way that I could permanently amplify your voices, because I think you guys accurately represent the thoughts, feelings, and sensibilities of the average person in this country and in the West in general. And so, dude, that is my way of saying thank you for talking to me today. And let's do this once this election is over, and you can lead me down that nihilistic rabbit hole.
100%, man. There's no shortage of topics that you and I can go deep on. I'm utterly convinced of that, and I feel the same about you, man. I love what you're doing. I promote it as much as I can. It's people like us that if we are going to, let's forget about the nihilism and the cynicism. If we are going to get through it, we have to encourage other people. We have to be brave and inspire other people to be brave. And come out and don't worry about what you're going to be admonished regarding, and speak the truth, man, the best you can determine it. That's the only way we can bring order to the chaos.
Well, you said when you were talking to Payman, you gave me one of my all-time favorite quotes. You said, I don't give a fuck about Canada. I care about Canadians. And those are
it's that Canada first. It's like, I'm not Canada first. I'm Canadians first. And when politicians start speaking to that, that's when I'll start really paying attention. But until then, I'm not too interested.
And let's end it there, man. That was one of the most beautiful things I'd ever heard. And it really stuck with me, man, because that kind of honed in on something I had been trying to been working through in my own mind for a really long time. So John Paul Berg, thank you, my brother. I hope someday you run for office. I would vote for you.
Oh man, that's a scary thought.
From janitor to the PMO.
That's right. It's a story.
Well, thanks again, brother, and let's do this again soon.
Thanks for having me, man. It was awesome chatting with you.